Now joining us here on Bulldogs Now, Grayson Mann from TigerNet.com. Grayson is a Clemson alum. He's been covering Clemson for some time now. And Grayson, thank you so much for making the time for us today.
I appreciate you guys. You guys do some great work over at the Fox 5 Atlanta.
Of course, man. Obviously a hugely anticipated matchup. If you ask Vegas, Georgia is very much the favorite. But the big-time college football fans know that this could be the type of game that Clemson will use to kind of set the tone early in the season. You've got Georgia, this Goliath with the most talented roster in college football, the national championship favorite. Just from a Clemson perspective, how is everybody looking at this matchup?
You know, I think it's different for every person that you talk to, depending on how they view last year. It might have been one of the more tumultuous seasons in Clemson's recent history. I look at this matchup going, hey, Clemson's certainly coming into this as the underdog, but I think Clemson certainly has enough talent to stick around. It just really, and we'll talk about this, it matters as far as Clemson goes with the offensive talent. It's able to match up against Georgia's defense.
Sure. I'm glad you bring that up. That's a natural segue into what I wanted to ask you next, which is Cade Klubnik, right? At this point, there was some dark horse Heisman kind of buzz a season ago. Clearly didn't work out for him. Obviously, you did have a new offensive coordinator there and Garrett Riley. But, those two together this year, what's the outlook for them? Do Clemson fans think Cade's going to take that next step? And it really seems like that game for Clemson to have really any shot at winning is going to depend on how well Cade plays.
Absolutely. When Cade Klubnik took over for DJ Uiagalelei in the 2022 ACC Championship game and put up an absolute show, Clemson fans, with the addition of Garrett Riley coming to town, felt, okay, we got something here that Clemson might have been missing in the last couple years offensively. And I think what's going to be really important for Klubnik this year is protection with the offensive line. When he has the time to make decisions, he's quick with the throws, he's able to be creative outside the pocket, but it's the turnovers for me that really come down to deciding, can they hang around against Georgia? They can't afford a fumble at the goal line against Duke, for example. They can't have a blind side block turn into a scoop and six against Florida State. Mistakes are going to have to, the margin of error for Clemson, they're going to have to really hone in on that. And when they won games, it was about 1.4 turnovers per game when they were losing, and going 4-4 last year, it was about 2.25 turnovers a game. So there's a lot going into this. And for me, it's, can the offense take care of the ball, and can Klubnik show an extra layer of progression that we necessarily didn't see all the time in the sophomore campaign.
It seems like this team's really going to hang its hat on its defense this season if the offense maybe doesn't get it going early. And the last time these two teams played, it was a defensive battle. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be the same, just because I know Georgia's got a lot more weapons on its offense, and it's kind of got its quarterback situation figured out compared to that season where Georgia actually ended up winning the national title. But I'm looking at this defense. I mean, top 10 total defense a season ago, passing defense, 28 turnovers, tied for number one in the country. You bring back Barrett Carter, who led the team in tackles, it looks like. Safety R.J. Mickens is back. Khalil Barnes, 3 interceptions, 6 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles. There's guys on this defense that maybe not a lot of college football fans nationwide know the names, but when you look at their stats and what they did a season ago, it seems like a pretty potent defense.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very cohesive unit, and it's been one of Clemson's more consistent, I would say, traits. And a really strong defense. You mentioned the turnovers. The Clemson at the tail end of the season, when they were winning games, they were forcing turnovers, and they weren't turning over the ball as much on the other side. And I think it starts at the front seven. You mentioned Barrett Carter, who made a very important decision to return. It's another year for him where he's got all the versatility. He's got all the skills to be an NFL linebacker. And it really is his front seven to command now, with Jeremiah Trotter taking off for the NFL. And I also look at names like Sammy Brown, a freshman linebacker that's coming in, one of the more touted prospects in the country in 2023. Is going to be joining that front seven. Peter Woods, a freshman All-American, down in the trenches, going to be playing some defensive end as well. I just look at this unit for Clemson, whether it's the secondary with Avion Terrell and Khalil Barnes, or you look at that front seven that the Tigers have, there's a lot of players that complement each other. And I think that's the calling card of this team, is that defensive identity. And I think if they can limit Georgia and just have a couple of drives here and there, they certainly have a chance. But I think it starts with their defense and really forcing the issue against Carson Beck in this Georgia offense.
If I were to ask you for a score prediction, who wins the game, what would you say?
I just don't know if I trust Klubnik quite yet with my eyes to make together 4 consistent quarters against the Georgia defense and Kirby Smart. Right now, I'm sitting at 24-14. That may change depending on what we see in fall camp and what we hear, but I do think Georgia wins in a comfortable fashion. I do think Georgia will just make the play or two that Clemson just isn't capable of making right now.
Thanks so much for joining us, Grayson. Check out his stuff, tigernet.com. Grayson Mann, look forward to seeing you. Are you going to be in Atlanta for the season opener?
I absolutely will be. I can't wait for it.
Awesome, man. Can't wait to see you in there, and thank you so much for your time.